We thank you that we are your children and that you have assured us that while we are intent upon your will, you will heed our wants. Fill us with that compassion for others' troubles, which comes from forgetfulness of our own, with the charity of those who know their own unworthiness, and with the glad hope of the children of eternity. And to you, the beginning and the end, Lord, the living refuge of the dying, be thanks and praise forever. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to call to order the special session of the Vienna City Council for August the 17th, 2023. Let the record reflect that I've taken roll, that all members of council are present this evening. Councilman Bibby is joining us by phone. First item on our agenda this evening is the public forum. We have 3 people that have signed up this evening. First this evening will be Chad Emmerich.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Chad Emmerich, and I am a Vienna city resident. It is obvious that we need to revisit this pool proposal for several reasons. As a father, I believe that Vienna needs a pool, but we do not need a pool with features such as a $2.5 million slide. If we use that slide for 20 years, it will roughly cost our city $125,000 a year to pay for it. That money could be better relocated in a budget. This does not include the cost of operation or the projected maintenance costs with that. The community has asked for handicapped accessibility and zero entry in order to accommodate our disabled and our elderly residents, who otherwise won't be able to access the pool with dignity, as some have stated. We should build a reasonable aquatic center that will serve the needs of our families for 12 weeks in the summer. If we did this, the significant savings could be redirected for badly needed infrastructure repairs within our city. Mayor Rapp, last meeting, you stated that you could not imagine a better use of the $2 million in carryover for this project. Well, I can. Vienna needs road repairs, drainage updates, and a laundry list of other more pressing needs than over a Disneyland-style feature in the pool. Let's really think about that in a time frame. 10 weeks over the summer versus 52 weeks of driving on roads or supporting our law enforcement officers with a continued much-needed raise. The decision seems clear. I also believe that a project of this scope and magnitude should be placed on a ballot for the community to decide on how we can best spend their taxpayer money. I would like to say that I'm shocked that we're here again discussing the Jackson Pool, but instead I'm disappointed. Rather than seeking compromise and developing a pool that this council can fully support, you have decided to bring this forward again, laying the decision squarely on the shoulders of one council member's vote. Thank you.
Ethel Harris.
Well, I would like to start saying, Randy, Melissa, Roger Bibby, who isn't here, and Jim Leach. I don't want to forget you, Jim. You're one of our main men.
Well, thank you.
But I would think that before you build $7 million swimming pool, that you could afford to give our police officers $5.77 an hour instead of $2.88. Let me tell you, if a criminal comes up to you and they're going to shoot you, you're not going to be a police officer there to protect you. So I hope you people walk on water, because you better run for the water. But having a $7 million swimming pool is outrageous. What's it for? Melissa's kids are going to be grown up before they even get to use it. It's going to take that long to build it. I know you don't want to hear the truth, but the truth is it's plain out stupid and ridiculous to think about it. And you can laugh, Randy, all you want, but one of these days you're not going to be laughing because these residents are going to get tired of this bull. And I'm putting it nicely. So you guys need to think about it. You called in Roger Bibby so he can break the tie. Hey, it was settled last week. You should have let it go while you were ahead. But instead, whose pocket are you going to be digging in next? You're going to get into your own kids' and your grandchildren's pockets. So I think you should consider giving our police officer more money than $2.88 an hour. You can't even go to Wendy's and get a kid's meal for that. But no, you're fighting for a $7 million swimming pool. I think people ought to realize that is ridiculous. No, they're going to bury their head in the sand. But when it gets into their pocket, which is going to be very soon, then they're going to want to come, well, I didn't know that was happening. Why? Because you had the meeting at 6 o'clock instead of 7 o'clock, so these people can't get off work to be here for it. You got it all worked out. Well, work out the $7 million and drop it and give the police officer money to save our city. That's all I got to say.
Tammy Rhodes.
The first thing I want to start out saying is that I am totally against this $7.5 million resolution. $6.8 million for a pool is not what we need, and it's not what the community wants. The public input for the master plan, the CEC did, there was nothing on there about that. They wanted a splash pad. They wanted other things that the whole family could enjoy. Now we have a baby pool that's 18 inches deep, and we have two 22-foot slides that cost close to $2 million. And since it has to be installed by a certified installer, what does that add to the cost on top of it? But I'm going to go on because one of the things that bothers me is this resolution. This is from the bid packet, and this is under general terms, public records. And it says that an award is considered complete only if the contract has been signed by the purchasing division, approved as to form by the Vienna City Council, encumbered, and placed in the U.S. mail. The second part says award dates. The award date is a date of encumbrance by the city. They define encumbrance as a process which ensures the funding is available for the payments relating to a specific purchase order or contract. And then down here under, I need to look to see if it was on here, under contract and bond, it talks about without the proper certificate by the finance director, the funds are available, and on and on. So, you know, what this does to me, this is a resolution. It has no binding, no legally binding characteristics. I mean, you all passed a resolution to have sponsors on the agenda. There's no sponsors on this agenda. So, I mean, resolutions are just what, a guideline. This money has to be legally accounted for. This has to be set aside. It is for the pool. So the whole 7.5 that you're asking for, or the 6.8, if you want to do it that way, it has to come from somewhere. You can't just say, oh, we want to do this. No, it has to be set aside, and it has to be encumbered. So I'm going to go on from that. There's a lot of hidden costs in this pool. You know, I was looking at the geotechnical report again, and it talks in there, it goes through all the stuff. I'm not going to read it. It says, therefore, it is imperative to have CEC observe the actual subsurface conditions encountered during construction. And it states that this is significant geotechnical issues are being addressed in the development of the site. And then it says the recommendations are contingent upon CEC observing over excavations, proof rolling, subgrade conditions, over excavations, fill placement, compaction, foundation construction, recommended bearing materials, on-grade floor slabs, exterior concrete mat subgrade preparation, in compliance with the geotechnical recommendations. So how much is that going to cost? Is the cost for CEC being on site during this time and watching over this, is that in the budget? Has that already been accounted for? Has it already been paid for? Or is this going to be a budget revision where we have to take money out of something, or it comes out of the 7.5 million if you end up passing that? The other thing I want to say is that, I already mentioned the slides, throughout that, the specs, it talks a lot about testing and different things. Who's paying for the testing? I saw Omni's paying for some of it. The contractor pays for some of it. But where is that coming from? And where is that budgeted? I don't think it is. And who's going to be the project manager for the city of Vienna? Who's going to be overseeing this with the best interests of Vienna in their heart? We need someone that has significant construction knowledge and experience to be able to read the spec book, understand it, interpret it, and make sure that everything in the specs are being followed to a T. That's the only protection that Vienna has to make sure that this project is going to go as it should. And then, that's a cost, and I think you should hire someone that's adequate for that job, not someone, this just hangs around the city building or something, but someone that actually has some construction experience and can follow up on this, and they know what they're doing. And now I want to talk about the parts of the contract, the 270 days, and the pool to be open by May 27th, 2004. And in the request for information, there was a question that one of the contractors or bidders was asking, and it says, based on our experience with other pool projects, including the Parkersburg Country Club and the current Southwood pool, we
Ms.
estimate
Rhodes.
this project taking.
Ms. Rose, I'm sorry, your time's up.
I just wonder how many contractors that 270 days ran off.
Mr. Bibby, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. The minutes from the previous meeting will be addressed at the next council meeting on the 24th, and the treasurer's report will be given at the first regular council meeting in September. We have no unfinished business this evening, so we go to new business. First item on our agenda this evening is a resolution awarding the bid for the Jackson Park Pool Project. Ms. Elam?
Thank you, Mayor. I first want to ask, Russ, would you address the issue of how we able to come back? It was 3-3 last week. That was asked. I know we've checked with the Ethics Commission. Will you just address that for a moment before I proceed?
Well, I don't know I'm not sure what's to address. Council can bring any. The issue comes up whenever you have something that fails to pass for whatever reason, whether it's for lack of a second or because lack of votes or what have you. We generally, as I have said in the past, go by Robert's Rules of Orders. You can't bring those issues up in the same meeting. However, there's nothing to prevent an issue from being brought up at a subsequent meeting. You can bring this up at the next meeting and the next meeting and so forth, as long as it's properly noticed.
Okay, thank you. I also, go ahead.
And you and I did have a conversation with the Ethics Commission to make sure that it was all in proper form.
All the others.
All right.
Excellent, thank you. I am going to introduce Charlie Taylor. If you would come up, he's from UCCI. They were the company that had the low bid that we decided to go with, and he is going to address some of the questions and concerns that came up in the previous council meeting, some of it involving whether it be cost or procedure or how to execute the plan, all of those things. I appreciate he had taken the time to send a lot of information to council so that we could be reviewing that and be well informed on that. I also want to say there's been a lot of talk about us versus, or the comparisons between us and Southwood Park Pool. That's the pool that I grew up going to as a kid. I have no issue with how Southwood Park is running their pool. Parkersburg has designed their pool the way they want it to be designed. They went through the process as they wanted to go through the process, and they are going to be really happy with their results. Likewise, we are the city of Vienna, and Jackson Park Pool is our pool, and we have a great design. We have a great company who is going to do it, and when you talk about cost and that kind of stuff, when we did the approval recently for concrete, the cost of concrete doubled since last year. So, none of us like to see the cost of things going up. However, as Mr. Taylor explains, kind of how those costs are broken down and how they compare, and the margin for which is appropriate to be within the estimate. I'll remind everybody that when we received our opinion of probable cost, we knew at that point it was $6.3 million. That was the engineer's closest possible number that they could come up with, and we accepted that and decided to move forward. And so we already knew the ballpark and needed to be ready for that. Now, we could all, and I was one of them, hoping that it would come in a lot less than that. But again, that was their educated, well-informed estimate, and the bid that we got was in 10% of that. And by industry standard, that is acceptable and very good. So without further ado, Mr. Taylor's going to speak to us, and we'll have a chance to engage with him, ask him questions prior to the vote. Go ahead. Thank you.
All right. So I want to start out by saying my goal in speaking here is simply to provide council with adequate information from a contractor's perspective for an informed decision can be made. I'm not necessarily trying to persuade you one way or the other. And I'm actually going to start out, not on my stuff, but answering some of the questions and things that were brought up here. And this will be very quick. But as far as managing the project for the city, I don't know if anyone from the city specifically will be managing it, but I do believe that Omni will have a construction administrator, and that is their job. They do that all the time, is to manage construction projects for owners. Because most owners are not savvy in the construction field, so they need a representative from an engineering firm to do that. The testing, so CEC, there was a $100,000 allowance included in the bid. So it's within our $6.8 million, that $100,000 for CEC to do all the testing for the project. So any testing that needs done, assuming it's under $100,000, which I think will definitely be in the ballpark of the testing for this project. If we use less than that, then some of that money will actually come back to the city. If it ends up going over that, then it would cost a little bit more. But anyway, so the testing is included already. So I've heard mainly the slide is $2 million. That was an estimate by the engineering firm, from preliminary, back in December maybe, based on preliminary design. Then I heard 2.5 tonight, which I'm not entirely sure where that came from. But the actual cost, I can't tell you specifically exactly what it was, because I don't have breakdowns from any of the subcontractors what that was. But for me, guessing based on what their overall number was, I would think that the slide is actually around $1.5 million. So it isn't quite as expensive as what we thought it was, but even though the overall project is still over what was estimated. All right, so I think that was the main things I wanted to address that was brought up earlier, but here's kind of a summary of some things that I had sent to the city council earlier this week. So the biggest thing with this project is maintaining the construction schedule. It's by far the most important part of this approval process. Delaying just this past week will have significant impacts on the schedule. There's a lot to do in this project, and we're getting closer to winter every day. So every week of delay is taking away from another productive week that we could be having on site. If this project is going to move forward as planned, it needs to be approved immediately. Per the bid documents, notice to proceed was anticipated in early August. Now we're looking at mid to late August at the earliest. From right now, we have 40 weeks until Memorial Day weekend. That's 280 days. Per the contract, we have 270 days until substantial completion. And most people probably don't necessarily understand the difference between substantial completion and final completion, but typically you get substantial completion whenever you're basically really close to being done, but there's still maybe a few like punch list items you have to go through and complete. And then normally you have another 30 days after that to get to what we call final completion, where it's ready to hand over to the owner. So basically, if it's awarded tomorrow, then we are still given 270 days for the substantial completion, but that only gives us 10 days to achieve final completion if we're to still be done by Memorial Day weekend. And so that would be 10 days instead of the 30 that we would normally have. If the design is modified at all, and especially if it is rebid, you're very likely looking at, I mean, you're almost guaranteed to miss the 2024 swimming season altogether. So not even just Memorial Day, but the entire swimming season, if anything has changed. So keep that in mind. Regarding budget, I agree this pool is very expensive. But now isn't really the time to stop the project due to the budget concerns. If the budget was a problem, it really should have been stopped 8 months ago or so when the architect presented the budget of $6.2 million. If the pool design is changed at this point, there will be additional costs sunk into a redesign and another lost pool season. The pool is expensive, but everything being installed is top of the line and should be a high quality product that requires very minimal investment for decades to come. The Jackson Park Pool has been compared to Southwood Pool in great detail, but I'd like to share some details on both projects that haven't been presented. UCCI bid on both the Jackson Park Pool project and the Southwood Pool project. We were not the successful bidder on the Southwood Pool project, but I am familiar with both projects, and I have recently gone back through the Southwood Pool bid documents to refresh myself on the specifics of the project. The biggest reason for additional costs on the Jackson Pool versus Southwood Pool is the bathhouse and the pool equipment building. Southwood Pool had no renovations to their existing bathhouse. It remained exactly as it was prior to the project starting, both inside and out. They also reused their existing pool equipment room and just installed new equipment in the existing room. At Jackson Park, the existing bathhouse is being completely gutted down to essentially the outer walls and roof trusses. It gets completely renovated inside and out, including all new electric, HVAC, plumbing, roofing, finishes, etc., and will have a small addition added on to the west end of the existing bathhouse. The pool equipment building at Jackson is falling apart and needs to be completely torn down and replaced with a new one. The cost associated with these two buildings alone, excluding any pool equipment, etc., is over $2 million. This difference alone brings the cost of Jackson Park Pool to under what the Southwood Pool was. So I'm telling you this to kind of compare apples to apples. They were able to reuse their facilities completely. We were not able to reuse our facilities. So a lot of the extra cost isn't because of the slide, because Southwood has a slide too. And they have all the amenities basically that we're putting in, and actually even maybe one more. But so it's not necessarily that this project is going so extravagantly, it's just they have to replace some of the buildings that were there as well, which has a substantial cost impact. Another big contributor to additional costs at Jackson Park were the soil conditions, and this was kind of addressed by you talking about the soils report, and all of that is included in the bid document, or in our bid price as well. So part of the reason some of the costs are more expensive is because under every foundation and concrete slab requires a 12-inch thick layer of stone to be put under the concrete to prevent settlement. Typically, no stone at all is placed under foundations, and only 4 inches to 6 inches of stone is placed under concrete slabs. Stone is not cheap. If you order a truckload of stone, it's probably $800, roughly. So that doesn't go that far either, especially when you're putting down 12 inches at a time. Some other reasons for Jackson Pool costing more is that Southwood Pool bid about a year ago. So there's a year of wage increases along with inflation during one of the highest years of inflation in our history. There was also new water, gas, and electrical services were required at Jackson, where none of these were required at Jackson Pool, or at Southwood Pool. And some of the quantities as well were discussed last meeting. So here's some quantities that I came up with comparing Jackson Park Pool and Southwood Pool that differ some from what was previously presented. So I'm going to provide a couple of different areas. So one is the areas of limits of construction. So I've got that area, and then I've got another area that's areas of usable space whenever the project is completed. So the areas of the limits of construction for Southwood were about 35,700, and Jackson was 47,000. So substantially more than what Southwood was. So even though the size of the pool is a little bit smaller, the size of the usable space, which I'll tell you in a second, is a little bit smaller, but the overall construction limits of this project are significantly larger than what Southwood was. And then the areas of usable space, this includes the pools and the buildings, basically anything that's inside of the fence of the pool. Southwood was 39,600, Jackson was 35,700. Not a huge difference, but a little bit. Pool areas, Southwood matched what Chris had 10,600, and Jackson was 7,500 if you include the baby pool. A few things to note on these comparisons is that while the pool size and usable space of Southwood Pool is a little larger than Jackson in the area, I already said that, okay. Approximately 2,500 square feet of Southwood Pool is used for the zero entry to get down to a shallow in depth of 3.5 feet. So only 7,650 square feet of the pool is 3.5 feet deep or more. So that if you only consider the part that's 3.5 feet deep or more, then it's basically the same size as what we have. Southwood Pool is almost entirely 4 feet deep or less, with a very small area of the pool dropping down to 6 feet. So it does not have the ability to have any diving boards. Jackson Pool is 11 foot 6 inches deep and will have 2 diving boards. Project costs, the number that was presented for Southwood Pool is a little less than what I'd gotten from the city of Parkersburg, but the total cost without any change orders or anything was 5.1 million, 5.143. And then Jackson, of course, is 6.8. That's a difference of 1.7 million. If you exclude the work associated with the bathhouse and the pool equipment buildings, the cost for Jackson Pool is around 4.8 million. So, then these last few things are a little bit about UCCI, but so there were concerns about contractor bids versus the architect's estimate. Our bid was approximately 10% higher than the engineer's estimate. Considering today's market and the fact that their estimate was done during preliminary design, this was a very good estimate by the architect. In general, you cannot always rely on an engineer or architect's construction estimate to be accurate, especially in today's market. That being said, we're approximately 10% higher than the architect and 10% lower than the other bidder, putting our bid perfectly in the middle of their numbers, and this should give a level of comfort with our bid. There were also concerns about our bid due to it being around 10% lower than the other bidder. There are several parameters that go into a construction bid that affect the general contractor's pricing, like their overhead and profit margins, subcontractors they're using, suppliers, if they own their equipment versus if they're renting equipment. $600,000 difference on a bid seems like a huge difference to the average person, but the context of the bid needs to be considered when looking at that number. Construction bids within 10% of each other are considered to be competitive bids. On a $6.8 million project, a $600,000 difference is within that range. On a project of this magnitude, if one contractor receives quotes from a couple of subcontractors that the other contractor did not, then that alone can result in a difference of several $100,000 in the final price. In addition, the architect did their due diligence by asking us questions regarding our bid after the fact to ensure that we had everything included in our bid. We reviewed our proposal and we feel comfortable with the bid that was submitted. During the last meeting, a question was asked about UCCI's ability to complete this project and if we've ever constructed a new pool. UCCI is more than qualified to complete this project. To elaborate, the work we plan to self-perform on this project are things we do every single day. We've been in business over 35 years, have completed individual projects in excess of $50 million, and complete projects of this size, complexity, and type of work every day. No, we have not built a commercial pool in the past, but we aren't self-performing the installation of this pool either. We have a certified commercial pool contractor that will be performing this work. They've been in business over 75 years and build pools like this every day. In fact, this project was almost too small for them to consider bidding. They also just successfully completed a pool project in Moundsville, West Virginia, where Omni and Martin Aquatic were the designers, so they're familiar with the project specifications and expectations of the architect. They will handle the actual pool construction, all procurement, and installation of all the pool-related equipment, piping, etc. Furthermore, there are 0 contractors located within 2 hours of Vienna that are certified commercial pool contractors. I'm actually not sure that there is a contractor in the entire state of West Virginia that is qualified to build this pool. The other general contractor that did this project was planning on using the exact same pool sub as we are, and wasn't going to actually build the pool themselves either. The engineers and architects of record have already deemed UCCI and our pool sub as qualified to perform this work, but UCCI is more than willing to submit a contractor qualification statement to the city if needed. So, sorry, that was pretty long, but hopefully that helps clear up a few things for everyone. If you guys have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
I would like to move to approve the resolution awarding the bid.
I had a question though for Charlie. I had several questions if I may.
Okay, well, do we want to,
You can certainly ask them.
Okay, I don't know the procedure tonight, so.
Charlie, stand right there.
yeah, I'll go ahead and move to approve it, and then we'll have our a further discussion and asking questions, awarding the bid for the Jackson Pool Park project.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution approving the Jackson Park pool contract. Further discussion, Melissa. No,
Yeah.
Kimberly. Kim.
Thanks for coming, Charlie. I appreciate everything that you've said this evening, but I did have some questions about, you mentioned the bathhouse and the equipment room, new to us because we have to replace the equipment room, and then we're going to renovate the bathhouse, and that wasn't happening at Southwood Pool.
That's correct.
And you're saying, if I understand you correctly, that's adding close to $2 million for that?
Mm-hmm.
When I go back to what Omni provided to council at the end of last year and the opinion of probable costs, it says bathhouse and equipment room. That has it at $723,500, and that includes the renovation of the bathhouse, the new equipment room, and all the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing that goes with that, okay? Apples to apples. So there's additional costs. If you go down to the opinion of probable costs, and it has buildings and site, meaning the bathhouse and the equipment room, and the civil site, it's $1,700,000. So I think that's kind of what you're getting at, but I don't think that that's completely correct, because that includes, for example, all the concrete decking and walks of the pool, and that cost alone is $312,000. So earthworks and the excavation, $140,000. So I think probably the bathhouse and the equipment room are more at $723,500, like this is, versus the $2 million. So that's that's a discrepancy, and that's a thing that I'm not understanding what you're saying. The other thing, it was just mentioned that, we're in 10% of what the probable cost that we agreed on, the 6.2 that we thought was going to happen, and then what the bid actually came in, that you're saying that we're 10% over, but I think this has been overlooked by pretty much everybody in this conversation, which is that when we did the probable costs and we got to $6,282,165, that included design. So we paid Omni, I think, $285,000 in design. So when you back that back out, we're not at 10%. We're over that. We're more like 12%. I just some quick math. But so, I can appreciate what you're saying, but there's just, I think that there's probably more to. It's probably more comparable to Southwood than what people want to say, because, like I'm saying, we're at less than $2 million for the bathhouse and the equipment room. I also want to mention too, just talking about the slide, and I know we've heard everything from 1.5 million to 2 million to 2.5 million on the slide, but people also don't remember about that. There's the cost of the slide, and then the probable cost, it has it at $1,526,907. But what we don't consider is all the real estate that has to be created, because you're pushing out that backside, we're moving the road around, the utilities around, we're creating new deck space, and all that is going to come under the civil and site, that $977,000. So while it's the slide itself is, 1.5 according to this probable cost. It's actually more than that when you have to create this real estate for the slide to exist on. So, it is probably closer to 2 million. So I just wanted to clarify that. Those are my only questions for you. I appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. Any other comments this evening?
Do you want me to reply to any of that at all?
Charlie,
It's up
you
to you.
gave your estimate. I believe we're good on that.
Gotcha.
All right. Any other comments?
Yeah, I have quite a few. If I can ask, Mr. Taylor, thank you for coming this evening. Just to clarify, you're representing UCCI, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Out of curiosity, is it appropriate for City Council to be listening to one of the bidders before we've actually approved this? Should we have not given Graycon the same opportunity to present their numbers and information as we are UCCI this evening?
That's up to you guys. You can ask for whomever you want to have the information. The bids have been submitted, the specs have been submitted.
Okay, I just wanted to ask that because I think it's, a little bit of a conflict of interest to provide an opportunity for one contractor and not the other to present their information to council before voting.
Just before you go on, Chris, for clarification, that was forwarded to the full body from the Finance Committee. So that was the recommendation.
No, I understand.
Okay, so it wasn't like, it went through the Finance Committee, the low bid was accepted. All right?
Sure.
So,
I just felt like I should make that comment and let it be known that I think that, if we're going to give one of the bidders an opportunity to present information, we should give both. So another question I have, let me look at my notes really quick, sorry.
I guess I'm really here more of a courtesy to the council just to help provide information more
Yeah,
than try
no,
to
I-
sell myself to you.
No, I
That's,
understand, and
we were the low
that's
bidder
something
already. I don't really need to
Yeah.
present anything further than that. This is really more for your guys' information than for my benefit.
Right, I appreciate the information that you've provided this evening. I do think, though, that it is a little, it is interesting to me that we are hearing additional information from a company who is basically attempting to sell us a $7 million pool. It seems a little bit uncomfortable for me to experience that. But, I guess if we want to do that, that's fine.
again, Chris, if I can clarify that for you, neither one of the companies was present at the Finance Committee meeting. And so neither one was given any advantage. It was simply that the Finance Committee reviewed the documents and bid or accepted the low bid. So,
Yeah, I appreciate that, but we are also tonight voting on whether or not to approve that. And we just heard a very in-depth presentation from one of the contractors.
Can I pause you for a second before you go on to your next point?
No, I would like to finish speaking if I can. So I think that just kind of seems a little bit uncomfortable for me. Not that anything is wrong with you or presenting this information. I appreciate the time that you've taken, but I think that's something council should definitely consider. And I just had one last question for you, if I might, and not to put you on the spot, but I know you and I had a very good discussion Friday after the vote, and we had a long discussion about how much this pool costs and the responsibility to provide a good pool for this community, and a lot of the challenges that come along with that. And if you would, could you just share what you said to me about how you felt you would vote if you were in my position, if that's okay for me to ask you that?
Yeah. So for starters, I guess I would have voted back in December, but if it were up to me and I were sitting in your spot, I would not vote to approve this. But it's not up to me. It's up to you, Seven.
No, I understand. And I
just figured if
appreciate
you
that.
guys are going to spend the money, it better go to someone local.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that. But yeah, I think that we're talking about a $7 million investment, and that is an extremely large cost to provide a pool that's going to be open, as Mr. Emmerich said, only 10 to 12 weeks out of the year. And And to put this much money into something that, really doesn't seem adequate to meet the needs. And that is my biggest concern here, is meeting the needs of our community. Really, one of my biggest concerns right now is, especially during construction, we are expecting to maintain the existing pool as it is. So that 6,600 square foot pool is not going to be disturbed in any way when we do demolition and pull up concrete. And we've already had discussions this evening about the soil and unstable soils and stuff. The pool has been there for about 60 years. How is there any way to ensure that that pool isn't going to shift or move or crack during demolition and construction of new things? And how are we going to be, positive that we're not going to have a really big issue 6 months down the road if the pool does decide to collapse or fall or shift, and then we end up having to replace an entire pool? I don't know that has been fully thought out. And, one of the other questions I have is the pool has a gutter that goes around the complete perimeter, and we're pulling up all of the concrete and everything around that. Was the gutter part, replacing the gutter part of the project that you're aware of?
No.
So
Keeping the gutter.
if the gutter gets damaged in any way, that's another, even the small portion of just the gutter is a huge expense for a pool. And lastly, we're relying on an existing pool that's 60 years old with a drain in it that I don't believe we're really messing with either, correct?
No, it's in the bottom of the pool.
Yeah, so we're relying on a pool that is 60 years old, and we're putting in $7 million worth of upgrades and fixes and repairs to go in and around a 60-year-old pool, hoping that it's going to last another 35, 40, 50 years. To me, that seems like a big risk that the city is taking on. And again, I can't say how much I am not in support of approving this, but those are all my comments for this evening.
I would like to address the reason why we asked Mr. Taylor to explain a little further this evening. You brought it up. Last week, you called them out, and you shared information that has been disputed this evening. It was... you're the one that started the comparison with Southwood, and you had all your square footage numbers and all of that. And Mr. Taylor had different numbers.
I don't believe he did, actually.
No, actually, hey.
But, yes, go ahead.
He didn't share the same numbers that you had. And I will add in just something that's maybe not measurable by square footage. I'm going to add in function and safety. Redesigning the bathhouse is just as much about safety for our children. I mean, if you've seen all the stuff going on lately with child trafficking and that kind of stuff, people walk out with kids all the time around us. It happens when you don't think it's going to happen. And our bathhouse as it is designed in this project is much safer for children. So, yes, this is not typical that we would have somebody come explain themselves during a bid approval. However, I feel like it was necessary because you also criticized their company. You criticized their company and they were not able to come up and address that or defend themselves. I think that was really unprofessional of you. So I'm not done yet. I also want to address the whole how many weeks of the year that we're going to have this thing open. We have heaters in the pool that allow us to open it earlier than normal and keep it open longer than normal. And that is the intention. There are a lot more people that use the pool than just teenagers during the summer. And I understand that lifeguarding is a lot of times the issue, but that is something, and that's something that we must address, that we can be able to provide a service to seniors who want to do Zumba in the pool in May and they want to do it in September. And moms that have little kids, when it's getting hot in those months, they don't have to wait for the pool to open, just because that's when the teenagers and the little kids are out of school. This does not have to be bound by the school year calendar, and it should not be. If we will program and get this thing going to where it is serving, we'll have it open for lap swimming during certain hours. It doesn't have to be 10 weeks of the summer from 12 to 5. That would not be a good use of our money. But we are going to have an extended season on the front end and the back end. I mean, not on the front end this coming year because we'll be finishing up construction, but in the years to follow, we will be able to provide a service that other pools in our area and other municipalities are not able to provide. Also, diving boards. Everybody's getting rid of diving boards, and we're going to have the only ones in the area. That's a big deal, and that's a deal breaker for some families. They want to go there. We've already had all the conversations about accessibility and all of these things. There are a lot of opinions in the city. We are a diverse group of people, and it is my opinion that we have designed something that suits everybody. Our bathhouse is going to be really accommodating for families, and for people who need ADA facilities. That is huge. And so by us investing in these other pieces, and our equipment room was really dangerous. Steve, Mr. Black has come and talked to us, I don't know how many times, about how dangerous it is and stepping over a pipe and all this stuff for his guys to maintain the pool. We're not going to have to worry about that. Yes, this is $7 million or 6.8, but my goodness, we're gonna have a great pool that is going to be an attraction, and not. I disagree with this amusement park comparison. We're not creating an amusement park. That's not what this is. This is a well-designed, thought through. There were other people involved. This isn't my big idea. There are other people that have poured into this and decided that this will be a great pool for our community as it continues to grow. We have other opportunities in our area. People who want to move here are looking for, what do you have for my kids to do? And this is a real attractive piece that I don't think you can put a dollar amount on for way of life and as a staple in our community. So those are things you can't quantify. You can't put square footage on it. You can't talk about the volume of those things. But I appreciate your time to address the things that have come up last week and this evening. And I yield.
Any further comments this evening?
Yes, I feel like I should have a chance to kind of respond to some of the accusations this evening. So I very clearly stated last week that I have absolutely no issues with UCCI as a company. I have designed projects and worked with UCCI on several projects. My question was, and Mr. Taylor answered that tonight, UCCI has never built a pool. And that was all that I was inquiring. And I asked if we had received a statement of qualifications from either contractor, which we did not. So no, I think UCCI is a great company. I know many people that work there, and I am happy to work alongside them in this community. As far as square footages go, I think that Mr. Taylor and I were actually very, very close to a lot of our square footages. As he said, Southwood Pool was about 39,000. I said about 37,000 square feet overall. So, 1,500 square feet, that's not a big difference. The Jackson Pool is about 35,000 square feet, and that's correct. And if you look at my numbers of 28,000, I believe it was 28,400 square feet. I stated that number because if you include the existing pool that, as was stated earlier, we aren't touching, that's 6,600 square feet. If you do the math, that's 35,000 square feet. So actually, our square footages and numbers were very similar to each other. So I believe that the comparison that I gave last week, and I am proud to stand behind this evening, was pretty accurate in comparison to those two pools. I understand we're not trying to build an aquatic center, and I've never compared Jackson Pool to an aquatic center. I think Vienna needs a pool for the city of Vienna, and we should spend the right amount of money to design the right pool for the city of Vienna.
Any further comments this evening?
I do, Mayor.
I was going to go to you next, Roger, so please. Whenever you're ready.
Okay. I have had way more citizens in Vienna contact me in support of the pool than has contacted me against the pool. So I want to make that point. The other point is, and the gentleman alluded to it earlier, the folks that we have retained for this pool, that's their specialty. They build pools. That's what they do. Any estimates or bids or anything like that, I think we're okay on. The other thing that also I've been thinking about is, yes, $6 million is a tremendous amount of money. I understand that. I get it. But I have thought about, and I think when we do this pool, we need to do it with plans that is going to last well into the future. I don't want to have the situation where the city council is addressing part of the pool in 3 or 4 years. And I think what has been proposed by the committee, and I actually want to make a comment about the committee. This committee, they embraced this project under the leadership of Ms. Elam, and I think they've done a tremendous job. I have seen so many committees over my years in the city where, I always said if you want something to really fail, appoint it to a committee. This committee did not do that. Like I said, they embraced it, got as much. Now, as far as people in the city getting an opportunity to express their views, if my understanding is correct, I believe we did that. There was a few, there wasn't significant, but that's typical. For some reason, that's typical for us on council. So those are my comments about the pool. But the big one to me was that, more people contacted me in favor of the pool than were against it. In fact, I got a text the other day, a rather lengthy text, and it was against the pool. But whoever it was, it didn't tell me who it was. Yeah, sure, I had your phone number, fortunately, but they didn't even bother telling me in the text that they were going on about they were against it. They didn't tell me who it was. So, that stuff goes on too. And also the comparisons that we heard to Parkersburg. I will tell you that I talked to a concrete salesman, and there were some other people I know in the city that talked to a concrete salesman. His comment was, I don't think they understand how much concrete has raised just in a year. So, I also think that's significant right there. And that don't count all the other materials that have raised. So, yes, it's a significant amount of money, but I think we need to a pool that is going to last into the future. So, council, in 3 or 4 years, it won't be me, but in 3 or 4 years, are not having to deal with, then, a whole lot more a job than it needed to be if we did everything the first time. That's pretty much my comments, Mayor.
Thank you, Roger. Mr. Leach.
So number one, for better or worse, we brought this design forward, I think, largely on a vote of 5-2 and to the bid process. And there's always better ways to do things, but we need a pool. And the second thing is this, there's been some comments on Facebook, the 3-3 vote should have stood. A decision of this magnitude needs voted on by every member of council. Everybody's vote counts in a decision like this. And Roger, thank you for being here tonight. And that's why I asked this to be brought forward. Everybody's got their opinion. Everybody has one vote. So let's decide.
Mr. Azinger.
Thank you. I have to vote no because I don't want to make the citizens of Vienna pay for something they don't want. And I've talked to a lot of people, and only 2 of them wanted to spend that much money on the pool. And most people I talked to are flabbergasted by the amount. One person I know could overspend an unlimited budget and was shocked by the amount of the money that it's going to cost. And I just don't think the citizens, and they're going to pay for it, I'm not. But I might pay a minuscule amount, but it's really minuscule. And I just don't think that what we're doing, I think, of course, everybody has their opinion as what the majority wants, but my little survey, they don't want to spend that much money on a pool, and I don't think we should force them to. Thank you.
Him last.
Yeah, actually, I want to use I'm going to crowd you out a little bit, Charlie.
I'll give it to them.
Pass that. Yeah, please. Okay, I think you can see that. So it does come down to numbers. And so today I spent some time thinking I looked at our budget over the last several years, and I know we haven't had a pool for 2 seasons, so I go back into the history of our budget. And generally speaking, $125,000 annually to run the pool, okay? Sometimes it's a little bit more, but I just put in the lowest number, $125,000, before the renovation. If you look at the bottom portion of this sheet, it has some numbers the finance director gave us last week with regards to interest rate, different rates of borrowing, whether we want to do $3 million, $3.5 million, or $4 million, whether we want to do 10-year or 15-year. And you can see, me personally, I know we're going to talk about this at another point, but 15 years borrowing cost, the cheapest it's going to be depending on how much you borrow, of course, 1.3 million or almost 1.8 million. So I would hope that we would stay in that 10-year range. But if I take the cheapest way to do this as far as borrowing costs, borrowing $3 million for 10 years at 5.25%, okay, that would have an annual impact on the budget for the debt service of $386,256. If you add the cost that we budgeted for the pool every year, and give you the benefit of the doubt and say that doesn't include any increased operating costs, extra payroll, utilities, maintenance, insurance, all those things. And we already know, as Ms. Elam had said, we want to be able to keep the pool open longer so that heaters will be part of this installation. Utility costs will be pretty significant. But let's just say all things are equal, we'll make it $125,000 onto that $386,000 of borrowing costs. So that puts your pool budget at over $500,000 every year. Now, I called the parks director today because I wasn't really sure what the capacity of the pool is. He told me it was about 220 people. So if the pool is open for 90 days, you're going to have to recoup about $5,680 in revenue to even break even. So basically 378 people spending $15 a day. Option 2 would be to go for 4 years. I'm sorry, $4 million for 10 years. And you can see that would cost $515,000. It would bring that budget line up to $640,000 for the pool annually. Once again, that's over $7,000 a day in revenue just to break even, or 474 people using the pool spending $15. I doubt that nobody probably spends $15 at the pool, but I understand we'll have to increase the cost to get in, and concessions, there's pool parties, all those things to generate this income. So pools are not income generators, never have been. They don't even break even. We know this. I mean, when we had the old pool, we would probably of a season generate about $25,000 in income. So I recognize it's not an income generator. I don't want it to be an income generator. What I want the pool to be is a good pool for our community that meets the needs of our community. Now, I disagreed back in December that it met the needs of our community because, in my opinion, it doesn't. And one of the big things about it is the accessibility. I think that sometimes we view accessibility as somebody being fully capable, and then somebody who has to use some type of a device like a wheelchair. Well, there's all kinds of people in between, myself included. I have 2 bad knees. If you have a beach entry or a zero entry, you're going to have more accessibility to the pool. We missed the mark on that. We really, really did. And I think as time goes on, that's going to be even more evident, because 2 lift chairs to get people who use wheelchairs into the pool is not acceptable, in my opinion, at all. And I understand the bathrooms and the shower house and all that. They're ADA accessible. Of course they are, as we would expect them to be. But that's not the issue. The issue is, how do people get into the pool that may be aging? This is an older community. We all know that. I mean, there's great programs for seniors for exercise in the pool. And so we're not thinking about what the needs of our community are. And I can appreciate that Mr. Bibby apparently got all the calls that were in favor. I did not get any. I've yet to get a call in favor of it. And as a matter of fact, I got some calls for Mr. Bibby who said, please tell Mr. Bibby I'm not in favor, because they couldn't get a hold of Mr. Bibby. The extension on the website or something is wrong for his phone number. So unless you had his personal phone number, I don't know how you would get in touch with him. It was said last week, there was a fair amount of criticism that this pool, that we didn't have any vision. Chris doesn't have any vision. I don't have any vision. I think there's been a big misunderstanding, because people believe that this slide is going to set us apart. It's going to be an attraction. It's going to want to bring people into Vienna. I don't think of the pool as an economic generator. It's not going to bring people into Vienna just to go down that big slide. I mean, the slide's going to be great and people are going to enjoy it. But I'm talking about all the people in between, because I don't believe this pool once again, has met our needs. If you're a family and you come and you have a teenager, okay, they might really enjoy that slide. But you may also have a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old who's really too big for the wading pool, but not big enough or has enough courage to go down the 22-foot slide, okay? So what does that leave them? Maybe they're not strong enough swimmers to really get much enjoyment out of the lower end of the pool. We missed the mark by not having that beach entry or zero entry. Some of the splash pad elements, I think that, you know, it's in, here's the Southwood pool. If you can see here, there is this beach entry, and you can see that there are little buckets of water, there's sprays. So, and then over here on this one side, it looks like a little half moon there. I think that's, once again, the beach entry. That seems to be a place where, you know, little kids can safely play. They're not veering too far into the deeper area. You know, they do have a slide, and, you know, they do have a lily pad, which we got rid of that because it was too expensive. We had to make some cuts, and then they have the deeper area. So to me, it seems like our pool really is about that slide. And that's been the biggest thing for me and why I don't support it. And actually, believe it or not, voting no on this pool was probably one of the hardest votes I ever took, because I'm a kid who grew up in Jackson Pool. I learned how to swim in Jackson Pool. I want the pool back. I want kids to learn how to swim. I want, you know, our seniors to be able to do their exercise and all that stuff, and for there to be community enjoyment, recreation, all of that in our pool. So I think that you could be against, unfortunately for me, you know, I'm against this pool, but I'm for a pool in general, but I'm not for putting a burden on the budget of, you know, $500,000, $600,000 plus annually, or it could be more. It just depends. You plug these different numbers in, depending on what route we go for financing, length of financing. We just kind of got ourselves painted in a corner, because, you know, we could have a really great pool and for less money. And while I understand we're during inflationary times, I also understand that inflation's been coming down. I think it was, you know, 8.3%. Now it's down to 3.2% or whatever, basically 5 points down. So, you know, we are seeing some relief in that. So, now I know how I'm going to vote this evening, and I think everybody knows that. But it's unfortunate after last week when we had a 3-3 tie, we should have stopped, reevaluated, take a breath. But instead, what's happening is the council's being forced to be here tonight. Mr. Bibby, who unfortunately cannot be here, is being forced to be on the phone. We should be at a consensus we should be unanimous in this. It should be, you know, 7-0. And the fact that we're going to probably end this evening with a 4-3 on something that's going to cost, you know, $7-8 million, and a lot of unhappy people. It's just an embarrassment. So, thank you.
All right, I believe everyone's had a chance to express their opinions this evening, so I'll read the resolution as it was written. Whereas the City of Vienna is empowered and authorized by Chapter 8, Article 16 of the West Virginia Code of 1931, as amended, to construct, reconstruct, establish, acquire, improve, renovate, extend, enlarge, increase, own, equip, repair, maintain, and operate any municipal public works, together with all appurtenances necessary, appropriate, useful, convenient, or incidental for or to the maintenance and operation of such works. And whereas the city has, through the work of its design professional, Omni Associates Architects, prepared plans and bid specifications and solicited competitive bids from construction companies for the acquisition, construction, and equipping of additions, betterments, and improvements to the Jackson Park Pool Complex for the benefit, health, and welfare of the citizens of the city. And whereas the city has received proposals from qualified bidders as reflected on the bid tabulation sheet attached hereto as Exhibit A. And whereas the city desires pursuant to the act and based on the recommendation of the architect to award the acquisition, construction, and equipping of the project to United Construction Company Incorporated as the lowest responsible bidder. And whereas the cost of the design, acquisition, construction, and equipping of the project shall be paid for from available funds of the city, proceeds of lease revenue bonds issued by the City of Vienna Building Commission, or a combination of both. And whereas the city may pay a portion of the cost of the design, acquisition, construction, and equipping of the project from available funds and reimburse the city for such payments from the proceeds of such lease revenue bonds. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Vienna as follows. It is hereby found and determined that United Construction Company was the lowest responsible bidder and properly submitted all bid documents to the city. The architect has recommended that the contract for the acquisition, construction, and equipping of the project be awarded to United Construction Company Incorporated. The city hereby desires to award the contract for the acquisition, construction, and equipping of the project to United Construction Company Incorporated at the price reflected on Exhibit A attached hereto. The mayor, recorder, city attorney, and all employees and agents of the city are hereby authorized to take such actions required to effectuate the actions approved herein. The cost of the design, acquisition, construction, and equipping of the project shall be paid from available funds of the city, proceeds of lease revenue bonds issued by the Building Commission, or a combination of both. The city may pay a portion of the cost of the design, acquisition, construction, and equipping of the project from available funds and reimburse the city such payments from the proceeds of lease revenue bonds issued by the Building Commission. This resolution shall become effective immediately upon adoption. Madam Recorder, would you poll the council, please?
Mr. Bibby?
Yes.
Ms. Williams? Mr. Azinger?
No.
Mr. Leach?
Yes.
Mr. Rapp?
Yes.
I say yes. Mr. Mancuso?
No.
So the resolution passes 4-3. We move on now to the reimbursement resolution. For any of you that are not aware what a reimbursement resolution is, it is the same procedure that we do when we take bonds for water and sewer improvements. This allows you to reimburse yourself from the bonds or other financing for whatever costs were incurred in the execution of the design and build of the project. Reimbursement resolution. The resolution stating the reasonable expectation of the City Council of the City of Vienna to reimburse the City of Vienna or both for capital expenditures in connection with the design, acquisition, construction, and equipping of additions, betterments, and improvements to the City of Vienna Jackson Pool Complex made prior to the issuance of tax revenue bonds or other obligations. Whereas the City of Vienna has determined to design, acquire, construct, and equip additions, betterments, and improvements to the City of Vienna Jackson Pool Complex in aggregate amount not to exceed $7,500,000. Whereas the city will finance all or a portion of the cost of design, acquisition, construction, and equipping of the project through the issuance of tax-exempt lease revenue bonds or other obligations in one or more series in an aggregate amount estimated not to exceed $7,500,000 by the City of Vienna Building Commission. And whereas the Building Commission will lease the project to the city, and the payments made by the city pursuant to such lease shall not be less than the debt service on the bonds. Whereas the city expects to make certain capital expenditures relating to the project prior to issuance of the bonds by the Building Commission. Whereas such costs will be paid from the city's general fund or capital account, and whereas the city reasonably expects to be reimbursed for a portion of the cost of the project in an amount not to exceed $4 million for costs incurred prior to the issuance of the bonds from the proceeds of the bonds. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Vienna as follows. Section 1. The city reasonably expects that the Building Commission will reimburse the city for certain capital expenditures made not more than 60 days prior to the date of adoption of this resolution and after the date of such adoption, but prior to the issuance of the bonds in connection with the project. Such capital expenditures to be undertaken or incurred prior to the execution and delivery of the bonds from the proceeds of such bonds, which bonds are reasonably expected to be executed and delivered within 18 months from the later of the expenditure for payment of said costs or the placing of the project in service. Section 2. This resolution is intended to constitute a declaration of official intent pursuant to Section 1.150-2 of the Treasury Regulations promulgated under Section 103 of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended, known as the Reimbursement Regulations. Section 3. The source of payment for such capital expenditures will be the city's general fund or capital account, and upon issuance of the bonds, proceeds thereof not to exceed the amount of such capital expenditures will be applied by the Building Commission for the reimbursement of the general fund or capital account. Such allocation not to exceed $4 million. Section 4. The maximum principal amount of bonds expected to be issued for the project is $4 million. Section 5. The city shall provide the Building Commission with written evidence of all reimbursement allocations. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the reimbursement resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the reimbursement resolution. Is there any further discussion?
I have a question. So I understand this is just a reimbursement resolution, but we don't know exactly how much money we're going to ask for in a bond. Up to $4 million, I get that, but we could settle in for $3 million, $3.5 million, and then we're doing this right now. We don't know how much money we're going to borrow or what the terms are going to be.
We were told by the bond council this is the meeting where you do this.
Okay.
And so they can ensure that you would get reimbursed for any of your costs.
Right. I get that. I mean, you know.
But at a future council meeting, you're going to have to decide the break of how you want to finance the money that's today.
Yeah, to me, it seems like we got the cart way before the horse, because I would like to know exactly it. Yeah, I'm not arguing with you, Amy. I'm not. I'm just trying to just point out, we started this project without a budget in mind. It's like, can you imagine going to a car dealer, you're going to buy a new car and you don't know, hey, am I going to spend $20,000 today or I want to spend $70,000 today? And you walk out, you spent the $70,000. You know, and so it's the same train of thought for me when we don't know how much money we're going to borrow for the length we're going to borrow it. So, I mean, it's a lot of money, you know, when we talk about doing, you know, $7-8 million pool, and the city of Vienna has a budget of about $11 million, then we're not having honest conversations about how much this is going to cost. That's serious to me. I mean, you know, so I understand this. All this is telling us is if we pass this resolution that we can pay ourselves back some portion of money up to $4 million. Like, okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Am I correct to say that this is sort of like getting pre-approved for a mortgage? I mean, on a much larger scale, obviously, but like you know, you want to buy a house and you have to go get pre-approved for, you find out how much so like we know that this is like establishing the boundaries, saying, up to $4 million. So like we have, to me, it's kind of the same thing. You haven't gone and bought the house yet. You don't know the exact amount of that, but you've got pre-approved. You don't know what your loan amount is going to be yet, but you know that you have that certain pre-approval. So that's my simplified understanding.
Sure, but that's back to what you're saying about being pre-approved, knowing how much you're going to borrow, because the least amount this is going to cost us is $862,000, and the most that it could cost us is almost 1.8 million. That's a lot to put on top of a project that everybody's already, not everybody, 3 of us at least are not comfortable with. And a lot of people in the audience aren't comfortable with either, so I'm just saying.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none then?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Roger.
I've listened to every comment, and, one of the things that is in my head right now is we're not approving an operating budget for the pool. We're approving, it may indirectly result of that. I understand that. But, this is for the construction and development of pool. There's going to be discussions down the road about operating budget. So I just wanted to add that in.
All right. Ms. Recorder, would you please poll the council?
Yeah. Mr. Bibby?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
No.
Mr. Azinger?
No.
Mr. Leach? Mr. Rapp?
Yes.
I say yes. Mr. Mancuso?
No.
Okay. I understand everybody's feelings on the project that we're talking about this evening, but, the reimbursement resolution is nothing more than a way to pay yourself back for the things that you've encountered up to this point. And as we sit here today, it's a $6.8 million project, and we've already got 44% of the funding in the budget and the donations that we have received for this project. 44%. Okay? And so when we actually go out to the bonding of this thing, we'll have an opportunity. The last time we went out for bonds, Amy, I'm sorry, how many banks do we have bid on our we had 10 banks bid for our business the last time. But at any rate, thank you. It'll be much.
Mayor, can I ask a question about that? You said we have 44% of this pool funded?
As I explained at the last meeting, Chris, if we allocate the money that we received from the ARPA funds and the CARES Act, that's $2.7 million. We've already received donations in the amount of $250,000, which, rounding it up, just for numbers, that's $3 million.
Okay.
So of the 6.8, $3 million is 44%.
But
You said if we allocate.
it's my understanding that we haven't encumbered a single penny to pay for the pool.
We'll work it out, okay? That's just, those numbers are there. They're in our accounts. All right?
Okay, I just think it's misleading to say that the pool is 44% funded when the city hasn't allocated a single penny to actually pay for it. That was my question.
I understand. But anyway, thank you. The last item on our agenda this evening is a resolution appointing 3 new members to the Vienna Municipal Building Commission. Russ, would you please, if you can do it from memory, explain the Building Commission and what it requires?
The Building Commission requires 3 individuals who are citizens of the city of Vienna, two of which cannot be members of the same political party. They can't be employees of the city, the federal government, the state government, the county government, employees of the city or members of the municipal government. And they are there to essentially take title to property and allow the city to obtain financing and so forth for these types of projects. So that's from memory.
All right. We have a resolution appointing 3 new members to the Vienna Municipal Building Commission. Be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that it hereby appoints the three following individuals to serve as members of the Vienna Municipal Building Commission. Carmen Conley to a one-year term, Chuck Knopfsinger to a two-year term, and Rod Smith to a three-year term. As per the requirements of the Vienna Municipal Code, Article 145.03, none of the three persons named are employed by any political party. None are employed by any federal, state, county, or municipal government, or any political subdivision thereof. None hold any elected or public office. And further, not more than two-thirds of the individuals named are members of the same political party. All are residents of the city of Vienna, and this is an appointment to be served without compensation. And just as it turned out, all three of these individuals represent different political parties, one Republican, one Democrat, and one independent. So there's no overlap of any political party in this commission. So I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the resolution appointing three new members to the Vienna Municipal Building Commission.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve three new members to the Vienna Municipal Building Commission. Is there any further discussion?
I have a question.
If you would just run those names by me again.
Carmen Conley, Chuck Knopfsinger, and Rod Smith.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
No, I understand the reason that you have to have a building commission in order to do the bonds. I get that, but I'm not exactly clear on the exact role of the building commission. And there was some discussion brought up several times this evening about, having a point person for the city, as this project progresses. Does anybody on the building commission fill that role?
No, they do nothing but deal with a bond. That's it.
So just the bond, okay.
That's it. Nothing else.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Madam Recorder, would you poll the council, please?
Yes. Mr. Bibby?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Azinger?
Yes.
Mr. Leach? Mr. Rapp?
Yes.
I say yes. Mr. Mancuso?
Yes.
All right, passes 7-0. I wish to thank all the members of the Building Commission for their service. We don't have a lot of need for this, but it is nice for they step up and do that. All right, that concludes our agenda for this evening. Are there any council comments? Mr. Bibby?
No, sir.
Thank you.
I just have one comment. I know it sounds like we are moving forward with a pool for the city of Vienna. And boy, do I wish all the best of luck to UCCI and Omni. And I hope that, Memorial Day of next year, we can see this incredible $7 million pool that we're going to have. And I hope it is a great benefit to the city of Vienna.
Any other council comments this evening? I guess I just have one. The last few months have been a struggle. For whatever reason, the design, all of the other aspects of this pool, the selection, everything has not been fun. We are now ready to move on. We've selected a contractor. We've got everything in place to make this a very successful project that will benefit the citizens of Vienna for a long time. I sincerely hope that we, as the elected governing body of the city of Vienna, can come together and make this project a success. Charlie, you live right here in town, all right? Your company builds a lot of quality construction projects. I know that you'll do everything you can to make this a showpiece, and it will be. It's going to be great, and I think we're very fortunate that we can make this for the city. And I guess I just have one last comment. Ethel, I apologize for laughing when you were up there, but you know what?
I was going to catch you after the
Yeah, but you know what? Do you know how many times you've told me I'm stupid?
You know what, Randy?
Do you know how many times you've told me I'm stupid?
No, I
For the
don't.
last 5 years, gee,
One
man.
that keeps count.
All right, any other council comments?
You need to go to the library, get your.
Meeting adjourned.